All right, in this video, I'm going to finish up this drawing. And so to begin this, we're going to need to create layers. So I've already started by making my centers layer. I'm going to use red because it's visible. I want to make sure I change that line type to center. Once I've made the layer, I can go to properties, and I want to make sure it says the line type is done by layer. What that means is it's going to reference what I specified in the layers when it goes to make that line. Now, when I go to make my center lines, I find that the best method of doing this is to change your line type scale to be equal to the radius of your circles. So here, if my circle is half an inch, it's 1 inch. The radius is going to be half an inch because that's a diameter symbol. So here I'm going to change this to 0.5, enter. And now I can do a solid line. Here we go. Point from one point to the other point. I'm going to use the other line. And you can use the line tool by just typing L and pressing enter. Now I have a nice line. Now, one thing I want to point out, if I change the scale, it does not update what already exists. So if you change the scale because something's messed up, you have to redraw the parts. It's good and it's bad. You know, if you have multiple circles that have different scales, you're going to want that. But if you're trying to fix errors, you don't want that. So now I'm going to continue by showing you a different tool. We're going to use the Modify tab. Go to Copy. Because I have two lines here. It's a lot faster to just copy that and paste it to where another spot that's applicable than to redraw it. So here I'm going to select with the green showing. That means it's going to select anything that the green touches. Now I press enter because the command line says select objects. They're selected. Specify base point. Base point's the point that I'm grabbing it from. So I'm going to select right in the middle. Now it says specify second point. This is where I want to copy it to. So I'm going to click. Now I can press escape. It'll get out of the tool. And I've finished my drawing with center lines. At this point, we now need to do dimensions. So I'm going to create a layer called dimensions. That's where all my dimensions are going to go. And for this, I'm going to use this magenta. Why not? So I click dimensions, and now I'm going to check that the line type is continuous because we want continuous lines. And now I go to properties, and here I should be able to make changes. Now, the line type scale is not going to affect the numbers. In fact, the text style is not going to affect the numbers. The dimension style is what's going to affect the size of the numbers. Just to show you, with the original size of the dimensions that I'm plotting, this 0.5, that's the size that I have. If I change this to 0.2, it's a much more reasonable size. Choose a dimension style that is appropriate for your drawing. Dimension 1 is going to look too small. It might be okay. It might be okay, but I kind of like the larger font. Maybe it's because I wear glasses. Okay, so now to make life easy, I'm going to reference the drawing to see how they dimensioned it. Honestly, for this activity, I care more that you know how to dimension than laying out your dimensions perfectly. The key thing is that larger dimensions go on the outside, smaller dimensions on the inside. So now what I'm going to do is get my dimension tool, select objects. All right, here we go. Let's start off with the entire height. Now, when I do it this way, it's going to create a line that overlaps. If I want to avoid that, I just did Control Z to undo. I can select the further out point, hover my mouse over the other point, and then as I drag it, you'll see the green line. That means that it is directly in line with that point that I hovered over. Now that I've got it, I can pull it out, drop the 4 inches. Very good. Now, let's continue following the same kind of layout that they did. Dimension tool, click here. I'm going to click here, or hover, and then I drag it this way. And now I can place the dimension. Oh, canceled. Okay, we'll do it again. Boom, drag it out. Click, move it out. Looks good. And now we're doing the center of this circle. So this one's going to be a little trickier because it doesn't let me, it doesn't give me the option to draw this dimension from a further point. So I'm going to press escape and select this dimension. Now what I'm going to do is drag these lines out. I'm going to drag just slightly beyond the object. Looks good. I can also select this and move the number 1 around. I think that's better looking. Cool. So we've done half of our heights, or most of our heights. Let's continue this. I'm going to talk less. And with dimension, it's just a series of clicks that, first click is your first point. Second click specifies the distance. And your third click is going to drop the dimension. Okay. Boom. 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 I don't like where that 1 is, so I'm going to just... There we go. I'll plop it to the side here. That's fine. Good. Last thing we need are dimensions for the circle. So I'm going to click. There we go. And I hover around. Gives me all these snap points. I don't want to snap. There we go. So you just hover around until it gives you a preview of the diameter, which is what we're looking for. So I'm gonna include that out here, just like they did. And we could add a note to edit this. And so the way that you'd add a note, you have your text style, and it isn't perfectly the same, because here you have 0.25 and 0.2. I'm assuming that refers to scale in some capacity, but you would just put your text. I would just do 2, all caps, 2 holes. And now I could select this. I can extend that text box so it's a single line and use that corner snap. And now it's clearly identified. We have one last step here, and that's to get it into Paperspace. So now that I like everything, I approve it. Now I'm going to go to my views and I go to my layout. In the layout, we have 2 different view spaces. You've got the paper itself and then the viewport. To access the viewport, you double click and now it's highlighted. I can now click the Zoom Extents button, and that's going to zoom in perfectly for everything that I actually drew. Here I want to have everything just right on the page. So we just go Zoom Extents. Now we double click back into the paper on the outside. The best way to find out if you're in the paper or the viewfinder is to try zooming. I don't know. That's what I find is the fastest way to check. So if I'm zooming and it's changing this, I just go Zoom Extents again and I double click the border. And now I'm ready to, let's see, use my default layer. And now I'm going to draw some text. And here, this thing is called 1.4 filter. Beautiful. Let's just do that. Take this. Let's extend that way and move it so it is up there. Great. All done.